Hey y'all, this is Trent Knox, and this is the Trent Knox Show, and our guest will be Jonathan Moore of Create More Media. He is a content creator and content professional out of New Jersey and the East Coast. I wanted to get on here a little bit before I bring him onto the show and kind of go over some of the stuff that's been going on. As you maybe have been tracking on social media, I recently posted a video that I was asking some questions from a CPA that's on YouTube, JJ the CPA, that's out there putting a lot of great information out there for small businesses, independent contractors, gig workers, about the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program, and the EIDL Advance. That's going to help out those small businesses of 500 or less employees, your independent contractors, your gig workers, your sole proprietors, and getting some access to some economic injury impact loans, grants, and advances. So I highly suggest watching that video. It's pretty much on all platforms: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and basically kind of listen to the questions that I asked, because the way how I got to where I'm at today was this ambition of establishing a nonprofit while I was living in Colorado, and having that experience trying to form a business with no comprehension of what the skills or avenues or how you form a business. And I don't want to get too much into that, but we're going to bring Jonathan on here and get this show started. Here we go. Hey, Jonathan, how are you?
What's going on, man? How you doing, brother? Sorry, I'm running a little late there.
Yeah, no worries. It's great to meet you. I discovered your video about how to get access to some of these economic injury funds for creatives, and dude, I think we're on the same mental page. So I wanted to see more about you and introduce you to my audience, my podcast audience, and the folks down here in Austin. So yeah, let's get this thing started. So I got a couple of questions, Jeff, definitely just to get to know you a little bit better, and introduce you to the audience that I have in the podcast realm, and then we can just kind of chop it up and talk about what's going on. So first off, this is Jonathan Moore of Create More Media, and I wanted to kind of get a backstory of how did you get into the business, and what's your origin story?
Oh man, all right. So, well, first of all, thanks for having me here, man. It's a privilege and an honor.
Awesome.
Yeah, for my backstory is essentially I've been doing my full-time photography, videography business now for about 2 years. No, almost going on 3 now. Before that, I used to be a school teacher, actually. So I taught high school for about 5-6 years. I was teaching art and digital photography. And, one day, I decided that I wanted to, go ahead and try to do this thing full time. I always had done, side gigs here and there. And, talked it over with my wife, man, and she was all about it, so I jumped in head first and haven't looked back since. So that's kind of how I got to, where I'm at today.
Very cool. So did you grow up? What was your childhood like, and what did it ever occur to you that you would want to be in the content creator, professional creative space?
You know what? I can't say that that's what I thought I would do for myself. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. growing up, I was always into cameras, doing pictures, doing videos, used to skate back in the day. So we used to make the skate videos and all that other stuff, you know what I mean? But I never really thought that I would do it, kind of full time. I always wanted to work for myself. I knew I always wanted to do that. But it just took a while to get there, because, you always, growing up, I always wanted to have some type of security. And, doing my freelance stuff on the side, was like here and there. I always thought to myself, if I really took it serious, I could probably make a full-time, living with it. But it took a while to get to that point. And so, now here it is in this day and age, right, with social media, being a content creator, is an actual thing, whether it's, video, photo, Instagram, podcast, like, it's just an interesting time. And so if you got that kind of, spirit where you like to create, stuff, you can actually, monetize it these days. So I guess it's just timing, to be for real with you.
Yeah. And so before you took it and went the direction of full-time production company, you were teaching and I didn't hear you tell me like what grades were you teaching, and like did you go to school for education or did you go to school for photography?
So I went to school for photography, when I went to college. I got into teaching, in all honesty, because I never really thought I would be a teacher. What ended up happening is I went it's called an alternate route, which is essentially if you didn't go to school for education, you can, take these classes and kind of get these credits, and then you can become a teacher, or you can get your teaching certificate. But yeah, I went for photography. I didn't think that, I would end up becoming a teacher, but, it just so happened the opportunity presented itself, because essentially what happened was I used to work as a metal fabricator, sheet metal fabricator. And I was doing that for about 5 years. And then I ended up getting laid off, like back in like '08, when the economy was like really bad or whatever. Mm-hmm. So a couple of friends of mine were substitute teachers. And, to be a substitute teacher, you only needed like a certain amount of college credits. So I ended up doing that. And that's kind of how I ended up falling into teaching. I was subbing because it was just easy money. I mean, you don't really do much but hand out worksheets, tell kids to shut up and sit down. You know what I mean? And essentially that's I ended up coaching. I started coaching track. And, from there, I, took some of those classes, took a test, and jumped into teaching.
Yeah, that's a really your story is interesting, and it's always your journey, your narrative thus far is kind of like something I've always thought about myself, but actually, the opportunity never really presented itself in that manner. I have family members that are very similar to what you've done. My mother was a substitute teacher, balanced between both of those depending upon. My stepdad, he's in the military, so kind of experienced both of those two worlds. And then, it just never really presented itself. I went to school for film, and right. I did the whole 4-year thing for film, and I'd never made a narrative film since I graduated. Everything I've done has been in the commercial space, or in some regard, some sort of like adjacent to like actually on a film studio production to that regard. But yeah, I think it's an interesting journey that content creators and professional creatives go down to get to where you are. And I mean, I really admire what you're doing, and I can see that you're really a hard worker, and you put in that effort with your YouTube channel, and and your website, and you're out there. You're really out there. You're really doing it. Where there are some content creators out there that are not as hardworking. They haven't put as much time into or effort into their overall like their trade or their skill, and I admire what you're doing. Yeah, and so you didn't really say it. You said that you kind of thought as you were growing up that this would be a path for you. But did you have like a favorite genre or established director, somebody that you liked their look, or like something that inspired you to in the way that you're currently doing it?
You know what? I really didn't. You know, because you want to know what? It was like I was never really a big film buff. I mean, I like movies and everything else. And I like, you know, photography and everything else, but I was never really like a real big buff, I wasn't really deep into it per se. You know what I'm saying? I just like the creative side of things. You know what I mean? So it was kind of almost like even when I went to college, like I only went to college because like my mom wanted me to go, right? Like it wasn't like I really wanted to go, and it wasn't like I was like really deep into art history or studying different photographers and all this other stuff. I just went because it was the thing to do. You know what I'm saying? So like prior to that, I worked in a trade. You know what I mean? I always thought like, you know, I should just have some type of skill set. You know what I'm saying? So when I ended up going to school, I just went at whatever I thought I would be good at, which was, you know, I always was into, like I said, creating videos and taking pictures and everything else. You know, like originally I had went for business, but it was like 120 math classes, man. I was like, I ain't doing all that. So I was like, let me just get this piece of paper, you know what I'm saying, and do what I got to do. So, you know, I never really had like, you know, somebody who I really like looked up to. You know, I mean, you know, my dad was a photographer, you know, and I liked his work, but
okay,
I was never like really where I had somebody who I was like, man, I want to make, you know, I have styles of people who I see their stuff and I'm like, that would be dope to make it like that. But I never was like, you know, super a real hardcore student of the game. I know that sounds terrible, but like that's just the truth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you see, like where you're at today, you think kind of isn't more a state of, or like an example of the time. Like what is working is like you try to make your work and just kind of get pieces and put it together so that you know, you can get to the next level. I like that in what you're doing is like you see you're taking like a little bit of spices from over here and a little bit of spices from over there and then putting it together. I like how you talked about business. You know, you thought about going to school for business. That's a interesting mindset. Whereas I think a lot of creatives are the opposite. They don't want to do the business. They won't, because they just expect people to do it for them. You know, they don't want to put in the action, the effort, and do it for them. So like, what? I guess my next question is like, what technology? You said you liked cameras, you like these type of things. What technology is helping you now to be a better creative? What's taking you to the next level?
You know what? I mean, you know what? That's kind of like a struggle, because like as far as technology, you mean like equipment, or you mean like, you know, like
software, equipment. It could be something small, like a coin or something that like keeps you going, something that motivates you and keeps you going. Man,
you know what?
For example, for me, live streaming is that, like I'm really passionate about live streaming. I like to learn about how new content creators are doing it and study the scene from Twitch to YouTube to Facebook to all the different platforms. I mean, right now it's the biggest is webinar. You know, these people who are in the e-commerce space just killing it on webinar. You know, yeah. There was a little bit of webinar I knew about before, like I did it commercially, but now there are all these other new traditional business people getting into the entertainment side of webinar. So like I'm watching that and I'm really inspired by it, and that's for me. What about yourself? That's I'm going at.
Yeah, no, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you know what? You're right. You definitely do see that. It's like you're seeing a lot of people starting to come online, use these online platforms. Um, I just really, I guess for technology, for me, I guess is really kind of like, I guess I'm fascinated with maybe more so with YouTube, I guess, because it's like how you can, kind of create something and have it live on. You know what I mean? I wish, and now and I probably should, but I wish that I did more kind of like my own personal content, you know what I'm saying? As opposed to like work for others, you know what I'm saying? So like YouTube kind of helps with that. But, I guess really, on the video side of things, it really is like more so, I guess for me, is like that YouTube, because it's like so much that can kind of fit in there. It could be like super low quality to like super high quality. You know what I'm saying? So I wish that I probably did more of my own, content or whatever per se. Like, I'm shooting stuff for clients, but I kind of wish I did more of my own thing. But I mean, I guess now with this whole, this whole health John going on, it's time to do that. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to get into that a little bit further, towards the end of the podcast. But yeah, so what with the clients that you were working with before the pandemic, like what was some of the things you were doing? Like were you working in the narrative space? Like were you working commercial, industrial? What were you doing?
Mainly I do video. A lot of the video that I was doing was, I guess, what you could call like nowadays, I guess what you would call like edutainment. So
infotainment.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And it's not super entertaining. I was working with a lot of real estate investors, right? So that's kind of how I got into the whole YouTube space. Is I had met this guy, and he was like, "Oh, you know about cameras?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man." He was like, "I got a YouTube channel," and that's kind of how I fell into it and started working with people in the YouTube space. And then on the photography side, it's really, I actually do a lot of food photography, working with, different restaurant clients, because like I said, nowadays with like social media, it's like a nonstop content mill. So, they always need pictures or that type of thing. At first I used to kind of, I never was a real big fan of like doing weddings and stuff. I mean, I did it because, you got some money out of it. But for, a lot of the work that I was doing for my clients is like, on a photography side, it was mainly, food work, or food photography, or work for them for social media, or also print, you know what I mean? If they were, doing print ads or whatever the case may be. And on the video side, it was a lot of that, infotainment kind of say, sometimes plain and boring whiteboard videos. Sometimes we did some maybe like, property walkthroughs or whatever the case may be. And then I also did a couple of like mini episodic type of series that was just kind of like a, a story kind of like put over like, 8 episodes or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you said basically, let me try and stitch this together. So you met somebody who had a YouTube channel, and so before that you were still working as a teacher, and then you kind of moved over, or like what was the timeline from going from a teacher to doing this?
I think when I had met that person, I wasn't teaching anymore.
Oh, okay.
And see, initially, when I had got started at what I was doing, initially I was going to do social media marketing, right?
Okay.
Because I was like, I could do that, like, taking pictures and, posting online and doing videos and posting online and all this other stuff. So that was initially what had started out. I was doing social media marketing. And during this time, I had met that person while I was doing the social media marketing thing. But what ended up happening is that like after a few months of the whole, getting started, like I lost like half my clients. You know what I'm saying? And the only ones that I had left were the people that I was doing content for, but I wasn't doing any marketing for. So I just went ahead and like just went on that. Like, you know what? Like, those were all my best clients, and I wasn't doing all this other, you know, trying to be on social media and marketing and all this other stuff. I was really just doing content and supplying it to them, and they had people in place who were doing, you know, their social media or their marketing or whatever. And that's kind of how I fell into the groove of doing, you know, basically strictly video and photo, just like strictly content. You know what I mean?
What? So when you started that, did you have like were you taking a course on social media marketing? How did you get into that? What took you down that avenue?
All right. So this how I got into that. So essentially I was thinking about like, what could I do, right? And at the time I was listening to a lot of podcasts, right? So I was like, yo, you know what? It'd be cool to do a podcast, right? So I started doing like, you know, some podcasts, like some interviews with some people. And my wife, she's a school teacher, and she was like, you know, there was these 2 kids in her class, these twins. She was like, you got to meet these twins. They got their own social media marketing business, you know, this, that, and the third. She kept talking about them. So like finally I'm like, all right, you know, whatever. So I set up a little interview with them, and, you know, I was at their place, and they were showing me what they did. You know, they did social media marketing, but they also like built websites and everything else. And they had this cork board next to, you know, on the wall, and they had a bunch of business cards and the cork board of who all their clients were. And I'm looking at all the business cards, and I'm like, looking at it, you know what I mean? I'm looking at what they do, and I'm looking at it, and I'm kind of just like running the numbers in my head. And I'm like, yo, if these little kids can do this, you know what I mean? I'm like, I can do this. So I ended up somehow, I'm sure you probably know, so like Ty Lopez, right? So I ended up taking a course from Ty Lopez. It was like a social media marketing course. You know, because at the time I was like, I was on social media, but I'm not like a real big social media person. So I just took this course just to kind of like, you know, learn about it. And, you know, it was helpful. It taught you how to like create ads and build funnels and all this other stuff. So I learned a lot of tricks or whatever, you know, with that course. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, life-changing, but, you know, I learned a few things. And then that's just kind of how I got into it. You know, I just like, you know, I got out there and I was like, yo, man, you know, I'm doing social media marketing. You know what I'm saying? So, and then that's how I kind of picked up my first few clients, and, you know, then kind of progressed from there.
Were you doing like door to door, or were you doing cold calling? How'd you get your first client?
I got my first client. So it was a friend of mine, actually. At the time, I was another friend of mine had a construction company. I was building a website for him, and there was another guy who I knew, another friend of mine, and, you know, him and his cousin had a website company. So I was talking to him about learning how to, you know, try to get into that side of things. But I didn't really like building websites. But long story short, he was working at a solar company, right? So they were selling solar, and he was like, I don't know, like sales director or whatever he was, something along those lines. So I had learned all this stuff in this course, none of which I had ever really done. And I just kind of pitched him on the idea like, yo, you know, you should let me do your social media marketing, because they didn't really have somebody doing that. You know, they were doing like a lot of canvas and door-to-door type of stuff. So I was like, let me, you know, do your social media marketing. I could build Facebook ads for you and all this other jazz and this, that, and the third. And then that's how I landed my very first client was through him. And then after that, essentially it was just kind of like through networking, through going to like different meetups and groups like that, you know, is how I started to build up the client list from there.
Yeah. So you come from like a creative family. You said your dad's a photographer?
Yeah, my dad, you know, that wasn't his full-time gig, but that's, you know, he's done that all his life, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, for like my dad was, you know, my mom, she wasn't like an artist or anything, but like my dad was into all that.
Gotcha. And so yeah, when was the first time you heard the word entrepreneur?
Man, I don't even know. I feel like I don't know when I first heard that word, like entrepreneur. I know that's like the word now.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't ever remember hearing that word really like growing up. You know what I'm saying? Like, both my parents had full-time jobs, so I mean, I would hear a business owner, or somebody got their own business, but like nowadays, like entrepreneur is like, it's like the buzzword now. I hear it all the time now, but I guess I don't really know when the first time I heard it.
Yeah, I was just curious because what kind of pushed you in the directions to where you were like, I gotta do what I gotta do to get it? Because so many content creators, the people who start off on the artist foot, they can't crack it. I mean, here in Austin, that's like the cliche, the starving artist, right? And so there's just so many artists out here that they don't have that mindset. They don't have that go-getter mindset. And you know what? I kind of feel like for me, I have like a kind of a similar story to you. I just for some reason, for my story is like I would get a job like that and kind of just have these jobs and learn the experience on the job, and kind of I never figured out, and I'm 26 by the way, that I'm kind of learning from people like you, people like my friend Knives, how to do it for yourself. And I never figured. I'm still struggling with this. That going and discovery, the discovery portion of content creating and putting yourself out there, and figuring out the marketing and the way to advertise and the packaging and that sort of thing. I'm kind of like. Somewhere I think you're a bit further down the timeline, maybe a little bit more experienced than I am in this regard, and I appreciate that you put your content out there and you can learn from it. The first time I heard entrepreneur, I think I was maybe graduating from high school or something like that. And then my first gig outside of high school was selling knives in a company called Vector Marketing. You might have heard of it before.
Okay.
And so I did that, and that I think maybe entrepreneur may have came up along that way, maybe talking about like the magazine or something like that.
Okay.
But I think that it wasn't, because so many people either went down the road of selling door-to-door magazines, the Vector Marketing selling kitchen cutlery, that sort of thing. But then I took a big break and I went to do the whole 4-year school full-time student thing. And then I worked at retail my senior year. But then once I got out, I didn't really have direction. I wasn't studying the job market per se. And there wasn't in my university experience, there was little to no like direction as far as like, what do you do once you graduate? What do you actually do? Right. There was just a lot of a theory as to, and I think the one thing that stuck with me since that my dean had told me is that, the way to do it is to create something or to develop a product and then have people buy the product. But he never told me to go out and get a job, Right. So yeah, I mean, when I hear stories like yours is like it's kind of like you had the step-by-step process. It sounds like that you were like, I gotta go get it. You got the job, but then after you did the job, you're like, okay, that's my experience. I've got job training. I did jobs, but now I got to go build something for myself. And then while you were building something for yourself, you got all these networks. You started to network with friends and colleagues and acquaintances, and you built up some system. Like, I'm kind of like trying to break down and trying to figure out what was that? When was the first time you were like, oh, okay, now I've got a system to get leads, and what was it? What was it like originally? Was it mostly peer-to-peer marketing, or what were you doing? And now what we can start getting into what's happening to content creators now is how, since peer-to-peer marketing is so it's almost so strong because you can be person to person. It's handshakes. It's going to events. It's being in kind of you know it's word of mouth, being able to have a conversation with someone directly. But now that we're kind of pivoting and that we're having this social distancing, shelter in place, these kind of restrictions on our marketing, what are some strategies that we can start implementing? And then maybe we can talk about the funding stuff, and talk about how the government's going to try and help out certain people and how you can go to other third-party grant systems to stay afloat. But I know that this next 6 months is going to be very tough for people. And for me, this is my experience is that, you know, I was getting to the place at which I was starting to hire contractors. You know, I was using Upwork and some of my friends, and I was able to pay them. And have them come on to set with me, do video production. I wanted to get to the place where like I could have them additionally do social media marketing, do some website design and that sort of thing. But you know, March 1st came around and it was like clients just stopping service one after the other, and you know, having estimates out and getting, sorry, I can't fulfill that estimate. And you know, this is not specific to the industry that you know, creative industry or video production or audiovisual industry. It is now construction, restaurants, hospitality. It's every single industry being impacted by this. But for those of us who are in the space of word of mouth, contracts and whatnot, what do you think like the pivot is for that strategy of acquiring leads, following up with those leads, and what kind of services do you think creatives should be training and getting skills in?
Man, you know, that's a good question, man. That's a interesting question. That's like the $1 million question.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little tricky, man, because, you know, it for example, like, you know, same thing when March 1st came around, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of business just kind of shut down, you know, right? Like the world went on pause. You know, I had jobs that I was about to do and everything else, and it just kind of came to an end. I still have some clients that I do virtual work with, so we've been able to, you know, kind of continue moving through that. But a lot of the stuff I was doing was in person, obviously, with the video and the photography. And it's kind of tough, you know what I'm saying? Like you know, just the other day or just the other week, I had somebody who I do a lot of work with. They reached out to me about, you know, a potential job coming up, putting some work together for them. But, you know, that took time, right? It took time to like get out there and build and network. And I ain't even gonna lie. Like, I'm not even really into all of that, right? Like, I'm not into the whole, you know, being at networking events and all that other stuff. You know what I mean? But it's just like a necessary evil, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I mean, for me, I'm not a super extroverted person, but I can be. But, you know, I just had to do that. So kind of, you know, building up that network now has kind of gotten me to be able to have kind of that word of mouth or that referral, you know, recurring business kind of coming in. But right now, as far as like skills or whatever, you know, that people could be focusing on, you know, is in all honesty, man, I'm not 100% sure because, I mean, I guess whatever is really, you know, I think the tough part is this, is when you have, you know, creatives, and I've been to Austin before, so I know what it's like. That's a dope city though, but when it comes to creatives, you kind of got the two battles, right? You got the battle of, you know, having your work and your name being on it, right? and it being representative of you and what you do, and then also you got the battle of like the business side of things, right? And so I feel like in a situation like we're in right now, you know, it's really kind of time to, like, you want to still be creative, but you also want to kind of throw like the business side of things on and really kind of see like, okay, well, what's a need? You know what I'm saying? So like something that I was thinking about doing is like, say, for example, like the real estate industry is hit. So, you know, virtual tours is going to be a big thing, right? So, you know, doing 3D scans or something along those lines, right? Like, that's not what my passion is, right? It's not like what I want to do, but at the same time, it's an opportunity, you know, to make some money, right? And to keep things rolling, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like trying to find those opportunities where you can make a couple dollars and keep things rolling so you can, you know, kind of keep going after your creative pursuits. Also, too, you know, it's kind of tough if you're not in the position already where you can be monetizing your own platforms, you know, whether, say, for example, if you have a YouTube channel that's monetized, or you have a blog or something along those lines that are monetized. But, you know, if you can, you know, now might be a time to get into that. It's probably not going to be enough to really, like, you're not going to be making a ton of money, but it could be something. You know what I mean? So you got that side of things. And I was going to say one more thing, but, you know, that's kind of like where it's at. It's like trying to see where opportunity is at. And it's kind of tough right now because a lot of it's on pause. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it's kind of interesting because right before all this happened, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was kind of starting to make a transition from the video photo stuff into creating a product because, you know, the reality is that, like, you know, my service business is what I'm doing, right? That's my skill. That's what I'm good at. I know I can do that. But at the same time, I feel like it was only going to be able to take me so far. And so, you know, the reality is like, when it comes to being a creative, and like, I'm kind of going back on what you were saying about like the creative side and the business side. You know, after a while, it's like, you know, I want to be creative, but I also want to make money too. You know what I'm saying? So, and I want to try to be able to do something that got me some, you know, get me some longevity, something that I can scale up and not be so involved in, you know. Now, when this whole thing kind of came about, that kind of shut that all down as well too. But at the end of the day, there's still opportunities for product, you know, type of businesses, maybe doing it online or something along, you know, online sales is probably where it's at right now. But something along those lines, you know, like if you're good at graphic design, maybe now's the time to do like an online t-shirt shop or something like that. You know, if you got a lot of photography, maybe it's time to try to get some stock photos popping or something along those lines. You know, you just kind of got to look for those opportunities. Like if you got cameras or you do videos, maybe virtual tours, whether it be, you know, don't have to be 3D scans. It could be a lot of videos. I'm seeing that is going on now. So, you know, that's tough. You're just trying to find those opportunities, you know, in the midst of all of this stuff. But you kind of got to, you know, wherever there's a disaster, there's still going to be an opportunity. It's just you got to find what you can exploit, you know, at the time, you know, but still that fits your skill set. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like I was all over the place there.
No, not at all, and I completely understand what you're saying. I think it put it into a different way, but kind of the same thing is that I want to hint on this because this is maybe where maybe people might get confused. Is the vocabulary and the language between business and creation, being a creative or an artist, they don't match up a lot of the time.
Right.
For instance, you said something earlier, canvassing. You know, that terminology is going to be used more on the advertising marketing space and business side, where an artist thinks of a canvas like where they're going to put their art, you know, where they're going to be, you know, painting or drawing or put, you know, the video resolution space. That's their canvas, right? And for the creative, I guess, you know, there's some limitations in that regard, and there are always limitations in business as well. But you know, right now, there's the avenue to having a Netflix special, a Netflix show, or having an Amazon Prime Video or a Hulu original. That's on hold. Like, that's on hold for a while, because there's productions that have been in production for 4 or 5 years just for those things. So we can expect, like, if you want to put a video on Netflix or Hulu, you're talking 10, 15 years before that might even happen. That's what's crazy as far as that's regard. As far as that whole thing is, I mean, there are individuals out there, and I don't know who they would be. I haven't done enough research on this, that got lucky, you know, maybe 1 to 2 years, got their program onto Netflix or whatever through all of the paperwork signed, all of that production, everything, right? But you know, that space is there's no light that a lot of these creative artists can see at the end of the tunnel. Whereas business, it's a little bit, you know, at least the independent, or even not even the independent, but the conglomerate or whatever, there's a little bit of you can see the light at the end of the tunnel through Vimeo, Netflix. If we want to get into like the adult side of entertainment, you could talk about OnlyFans, you know, premium Snapchats, all these things in that lane. And you know what? That's the thing that people are dealing with right now, at least in this situation, is like, what are you willing to sacrifice? You know, and that's unfortunate, because a lot of us that are bridge the gap between creative and the business, have been trying to represent or like pioneer for those people you know, there is more opportunity at the Netflix, the Hulus, the Amazons of the world, you know, and unfortunately this has kind of put that clamp on there, saying that that's gonna have to wait. You know, that opportunity's got to wait. You know, having a television show or doing anything in that regard is gonna have to wait. All of those things, and so, I mean, there's an avenue that you just have to want that. You know, you just want to have to, number one, you want to see some success, so that you don't feel like whatever you're doing is going nowhere, which is something that people will probably have to think, okay, well, do I just put this movie out on YouTube or Facebook, or, you know, an avenue, and you know, you talked about monetization opportunities, and well, I take a deep breath right there, because so many content creators, artists have been aiming at that Netflix, that Amazon, that Hulu, that HBO, that traditional broadcast television, that they don't have the structure like you do or I do. Even though I think you're in a whole nother zone. I look at you, the way you've been platforming, man. You've created a lot of avenues, and you know, I'm sure we could go down the conversation of multiple streams of income and that regard too. But there are, I mean, what would you say to those folks that are just getting started? You know, they don't have it. You know, and for me, I've got the podcast and I've done the Twitch thing, so I'm kind of in that area. So, okay. I've got a little bit of an avenue. I got a taste of what that is, but right. You know, it's yeah, there are a lot of folks out there that this is day one. You know, day zero was maybe March 1st. Right, yeah. You know.
I mean, you know, I ain't gonna lie. If today is day one, it's tough, man. It is tough.
Yeah.
But what it really kind of comes down to is, the tough part is about what creatives is that it's like you said, right? You got a little taste, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to just have like your little taste. You got to figure out, you know, how you going to make money. That's what it kind of comes down to. You know, you really got to figure out like how you going to make money. It depends on how important it is to you. Like, so for me, that's why I do it full time. You know what I mean? So I have to learn, like, whatever I'm doing, how am I going to make money? If I'm going to pick up a camera, I'm going to make money with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and sometimes it's like some of the things that I'm doing isn't always the most exciting thing, but I know it can make some money, right? You know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't really want to shoot a virtual tour of a house, but that can make me some money, which can then fuel the other creative stuff that, like, the bigger platforms that, if that is my goal one day, that I could get to. But, like, if it's day one, man, you just kind of got to figure out, like, what can you do to make you some money? You know what I'm saying? You kind of got to put the art side. You got to keep it there, but you got to get the hustling hat on, you know what I'm saying? And figure out, like, what can I do to make some money? You know what I'm saying? And, like, that could be anything. That could be, like, I'm going to do, say, like, an Instacart. You know what I mean? I'm going to do a Uber Eats, a DoorDash. It don't, it's like, you just got to figure out how you can make money so you can keep doing the things that you want to do. Because if you ain't making no dough, it's hard to do that. So if right now it's day one and you trying to get into that whole creative space, the reality is you're probably, just like you say, you're going to have to wait. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of that stuff is going to be put on pause. Yeah. And you're just going to have to find some alternative avenues. You know what I mean? And, like, it just is what it is. You know what I'm saying? And one day when things kind of get back to normal, who knows when that'll be. But, then you can start to put that, that back into motion. But, you can't put it into motion at all if you ain't got no dough. So you just kind of got to figure out what you can do in this moment and then rock and roll from there, man. You know what I'm saying? But, like, yeah, that's a tough question, though. If today is day one, though, normally I would say, listen, if it was just normal and today was day one, I would say go get a sale. Like, pitch your idea to somebody and sell it. You know what I'm saying? Get some money in the door. Don't worry about too much. Don't worry about, all the other stuff that a lot of people get caught up on, websites or business cards or logos or all that stuff. Don't even sell the idea first, get some money in, and then handle all that stuff later. But now, today, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. You just got to do what you got to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you said a lot of things, and I mean, I don't know if you have much time to go past the hour mark, but I wanted to verify with you if that's okay.
Yeah,
Cool. So just let me know if you have to go, and we can wrap it up. So number one, I particularly, after I graduated college and did all of that stuff, and I was still in the game a little bit with the video stuff, but I was doing volunteer work and trying to build up my portfolio, right? That's the whole thing that they talk about, their portfolio, and so for day zero people, this maybe they can relate to this, is that I was going out there, I was doing the gig economy work, doing the Postmates, doing the Uber, doing the Lyft, that sort of thing, and I did that for about 3 years full time and still tried to make this thing work out. And then, I don't know. Maybe I didn't have the communication skills or the technical skills or anything to get to I don't know how to explain it, but certain other folks have figured out the Ty Lopez stuff, that stuff, like kind of where you're at, and and then you see those individuals that some reason it just hit. It went off like to stratosphere with the way the Tim Ferriss style 4-hour work week stuff. Which I only know a couple people that are at that level of it working out for them. But you grind. I go out there and I grind. I did the whole driving the Uber stuff, gig work, and it is an avenue of monetization. It is something you can do. Unfortunately, it does take a lot of investment. If you don't have the car or the bicycle or the you're not living in the right area, all those reasons that could be excuses as to why you couldn't do it. And you're gonna hear from everybody under the sun, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, yada yada yada. Happened. I know. I've heard this story a million times. In that regard, And it's interesting because the people who are at day zero that don't have a portfolio, and I was thinking about the folks that have just been laid off from their full-time job, like their job that was in a cubicle or whatever that was, that are like, what do I do now? I definitely recommend them, to go check out the Ubers, the Lyfts, that sort of thing, and get out there, and that's a quick buck. If you need a quick buck, that's that way to go. The building the portfolio thing and the sales route, the door to door, the cold calls, that sort of thing. There's just so much competition right now, just so much competition, and that's not to say it's not a huge market. It is a huge market, and there are people who are going to need team players, people who can facilitate a certain role, whether that's the person who's in charge of e-commerce on the website, or the person who's in charge of marketing and advertising. But that business that you're pitching to has to have a bigger structure, a bigger online structure, whereas the mom and pop coffee shop or the food truck or so many different local businesses aren't going to have that online presence at that level that could facilitate job creation. So I guess the thought that was going on, I think the key for folks is, the video that I saw from you, obviously I was searching around for YouTube for answers or like some advice or something in regard to the payroll protection program and the EIDL advance, and that was the video I saw, and I was like, man, I gotta get this guy on the show. I gotta have a conversation with him because he's got the experience, he's got the resume, he's got all these things, he's thinking about this like I'm thinking about this, and I know that the people that listen to my show that are in the content creation realm, because I niche out to esports. I've been in esports for the past 5 years. Okay. And that business it's not as scaled out as some of these other e-commerce businesses. They're more in like the same position that you and I are in, where they're building their brand, they're growing their network, and whatnot, and I know a lot of people in the video space that are like that too. The videographers, the producers, the production assistants, those people who played key roles. All right, so now I've kind of listed a lot of different people who are kind of in this, day 15, category or whatever. They have two options, right? They can either kind of have this. What is it, that they're too good for help? They're like, there's a word that's been going around. I can't think of the word off the top of my head, but it's like they're too proud. They're too proud to take advantage of PPP or EIDL advance, and they just don't. They're not motivated to go out and take take whatever risk it is to do a Lyft, an Uber, a rideshare, a gig economy job. Man, do you have some words for those people? Because I've got plenty of words. I'm angry at those folks, because it's like, right. I went through all that pain and tribulations and took the sacrifices when everybody said, don't do it. Don't go out there and grind. It's going to do nothing for you. Those folks they just need a fire, like some sort of fire under them to be like, if you need help, get the help. If you're there and you can't make it, well, make the sacrifice, go out there, whether it's a sacrifice on your car, because I hear it all the time. People say, Lyft puts too much wear and tear on your car. Learn. I'm going to give you, hold on. My question was, what would you say? And I'm going off, but yeah, what would you say?
I mean, you know what? It's simple, man. It's like, if you want it, you'll go get it. And if you don't, you won't. You know what I mean? It really is that simple. It's like, I feel you when you're saying like how you might feel like you got a lot to say, but I mean, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you too proud, you don't want to go for it, don't go for it. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you don't want it, I'll take it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you walk past a penny on the ground, I'm picking it up because I want all that money. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you don't want it, ain't no problem. You know what I mean? Just, hey, don't. You want it, you want it. If you want it bad enough, you'll do something, and if you don't, you won't. I mean, it's just, you know, what else can you do? You know, you can't make nobody do something. So, and that's what I think. You know what I mean? I don't have, you know, if you out there, my encouraging words would be like, keep it going. You know, you got to do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it might not be what you want to do, but at least you'll learn that in the process, right? You'll learn like, all right, this ain't what I'm trying to do. And when I get to where I'm trying to go, I know I don't want to go back to this thing. But, you know, if you don't want to, you too proud, you don't want to get out there, you don't want to ask for the help, don't. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't. You know, that's fine. You know, somebody else will do it. Hey, it don't matter. That's fine.
Yeah, and you know what? I think some folks, you know, especially, you know, folks who are coming off of on the day zero, you know, just got laid off from their job or whatever, they're gonna say, you know, that they can't go and, you know, reach out to people like I'm doing with you know, people that you never met before. You know, you may not meet for a while because this whole situation with the coronavirus and all this shelter in place stuff going on, and you know, but you gotta still network. You still gotta figure out a way to grow your brands, grow your presence online while you can't grow your presence offline. And that, I think that, you know, there's people who do have kind of social anxiety, and that kind of is still exhibited through this you know, virtual experience that, you know, you and I are experiencing right now. People have that, and they get kind of nervous or whatever it is. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing, you know, yada yada yada. But I just, you know, I, like you were saying, I reiterate the words that you're saying, is like, you gotta go make it happen or do it, you know, because maybe those opportunities that we're talking about right now, you know, we never know. Lyft might just shut down because it's just not you know, it's a person-to-person opportunity. It just shuts down and can't do that anymore. You know, might have to have certifications that the average person can't get. I mean, I'm not trying to be doomsday here, but reality is some things will. There's a lot of stuff that's going to go back to the drawing board, you know, and that's gonna happen. You know, and people who are like, I'm too proud to get the government aid or whatever it may be, you don't know until you do it whether it's going to make you less proud or more proud or whatever it may be. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that aren't going to be able to take advantage of it because they just don't got their documents in line, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah.
So I guess, like, maybe the last thing we can talk about here is there's a lot of opportunity that's about to happen, but it's just not stuff that maybe is what you're used to. There's going to be a lot of, you know, opportunity in spaces that are going to be pivoting, like the idea of cloud kitchens. You know, cloud kitchens have been a conversation for the past couple of years, where you just make the food and it goes in a robot or it goes in a Postmates or Uber Eats car and it gets delivered to you. You know, in the business, or I guess I'm not sure if it's in the business world, but they talk about something called the last mile. So it's kind of the idea that you may never go into a 7-Eleven again. That, you know, you just You order it and it shows up at your doorstep. You don't ever have to go there, and it's, the economy is gonna have to change. The whole way we do things and operate businesses. I personally have been studying this for a long time, so I know I'm in a different mindset than a lot of folks who are used to going out there and picking up their milk at the grocery store. And I've been the type of person that's like getting prepared for this for a while. I'm not the doomsday prepper that I see folks having the dehydrated foods or anything like that, but the world is definitely, it's always been changing, but this is one of those times where it's really accelerated, and we're all just kind of trying to get our footing, right? And for those who are a little bit further down the road, like you and I, who know our way around, online marketing, know our way around, the technical uploading, processing and interfacing with online environments. I just want to encourage those people to just keep on creating and making things that someone, even if it's just one person, sees it, to do it, because it matters. It does matter. And don't get stuck on one platform, because that's where things can get a little bit can get confusing, because you just may not ever register on YouTube or Facebook or whatever platform that is. Diversify your portfolio. It's like owning stock. You own stock in your own content by putting it on multiple platforms. And then I guess I'd say try and learn a new skill. Whether that's live streaming or photography or any sort of art, cooking. There's different things that you can do during this time and whatnot, to just make yourself a better person. And maybe that's a cliche, but improving yourself is an important thing, I think.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, you're right. You're seeing a lot of things. I'm seeing a lot of things that are becoming popular that probably weren't as popular before. Even when you said cooking, it made me think about, I seen something the other day, and some lady or whatever is doing, this lady I know, actually a lady I know is doing it. She's doing these Facebook Lives, cooking meals or whatever the case may be, and it's getting a lot of juice out there, a lot of traction, so it's like she wasn't really doing it before, but now it's turning into a more popular thing because of the situation that we're in, you know what I'm saying? And so you're right, learning a different type of skill, as cliche as it sounds, becoming a better person or whatever, the case may be, because, I kind of believe, and what you were just saying, as far as I never heard of the concept of the last mile, but I do believe that, this whole thing that we're in is going to speed up the Amazonification kind of our world, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think there's going to be as many retail places coming back, once this is all over. I don't think it's going to be as many restaurants coming back. There's going to be new ones and everything else, but I think when this is all over, the landscape is going to be a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's that's a real thing. That's a fact. Just like people live paycheck to paycheck, businesses live paycheck to paycheck, right? Like you were talking about, even when you first getting out there, day one, day zero, day zero, maybe you could do stuff for mom and pops because you might be trying to build a portfolio. So, you offering free work or whatever the case may be. But then when it comes time to, get down and get serious and get busy, you do got to step up to somebody who's bigger, who has the infrastructure, who has the ability to pay you or whatever the case, may be. And so just like people live paycheck to paycheck, a lot of these businesses live paycheck to paycheck. You know, and it's gonna be different, man, for a lot of things, you know, that ends up happening, you know, after this whole thing. And, you know, and something as far as like just ordering something, not being able to go to the 7-Eleven or whatever the case may be, you know, that's not far-fetched. You know, that's a real thing. So, you know, if you just got laid off of your job or whatever the case may be, you know, that's real. You know, you might have to learn a different skill because you might not go back to where you just were, you know? So it's, you know, it's right. You're right. You got to learn something, do something different, learn something new. Just try, you know what I mean? You don't have to be the best at everything. You just kind of got to learn and get in where you fit in and make it happen, you know, from there. You know, you don't have to be the best at what everybody else is the best at. You just got to do what you can do and do it the best you can do it, you know?
Yeah, I think something to highlight on that point is that if no one else is going to make it happen for you, and maybe the help isn't enough help, that's the thing I'm most worried about, is that, you know, this PPP EIDL is that it's not going to get to the independent contractor. It's not going to get to the small business because, you know, I'm in one of those places. I'm in that category, and I haven't seen any of it. I seen zilch, seen nothing, you know, and I know that 5% of all businesses have received some grant. We're talking hundreds of millions of businesses, 5%, you know, maybe less.
No, I mean, no, that's real. You know, that really is the numbers, you know, like not a lot of people are seeing it, you know, and it's hard when it gets down to this level, right? But that's why you might as well try to get it. Because if it happens, it happens. And if it don't, you know, you're just going to have to adapt and do something different. But, you know, even just following along with all of this stuff, it's like, you know, I'm seeing a lot of people who, you know, they've been in business, I mean, maybe for years, longer than me, or maybe not as long. You know, both scenarios where, you know, they just, like you said a little bit ago, they don't have any documents in order. You know, maybe they don't have a business bank account or something along those lines. Just, you know, like the business side of things, not just the creative side of things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's prohibiting them from taking part in this program. And, you know, I mean, and you're right, it might not be enough, right? It might not be enough because you don't know how long this whole thing is going to last. So it might not be enough, but you know what? At that point, you know, you just got to pivot and adapt, do something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just keep it rolling.
Yeah. I mean, I'm one of those people who looks at it, you know, and thinks about, what if I wasn't in the position that I'm in right now, where, you know, I have a little bit of documents. I've been playing, you know, the game of business or independent contractor. I've been making it happen for myself is the word I was looking for, or the thing I wanted to say was I made it happen for myself. You know, I know there are folks out there that got a job when they were, you know, 18, been at the same job for a long time. You know, they never really made it happen for themselves. They never got another skill. They just, whatever, data entry, whatever it may be, they don't exist on a Lyft platform. They don't exist as a contractor, really. They, you know, they've got they have no representation out there outside of the job that they've been working for so long.
Well, if you think about it, not to interrupt you, but if you think about it, it's like you don't have to, right? It's like if you work,
you don't have to,
right? You work like it's like you're saying, you're talking about different ways to be creative and still network and reach out and get to know people and all this stuff while all this is going on, right? But if you always just kind of had that job, you don't have to do that. You don't have to, right? Like, what do I have to network for? I get paid. I go to work. You know, I do my thing and I go home. I don't have to network. You know, I can if I want to. You know, get to know people and all that, but I don't have to. You know what I'm saying? But if you're doing something for yourself, now all of a sudden you got to. You know what I'm saying? And it's like I said, I'm not really. You know, I'm not a serial networker, and I'm not all about going to every damn event that there is. But it's part of the game now. You know what I'm saying? But when I worked and I had a job, I ain't have to do none of that stuff. You know what I mean? I just go to work, do my thing, just keep it moving. You know, I didn't have to worry about getting better at anything or meeting new people or being innovative. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I'm not to knock on anybody in that position, but if you think about it, it's like, you don't have to. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know.
Yeah, there are going to be those people. I hope this is the case. At least there's going to be some people who are fortunate enough to get back right into that the job, the I don't know how to explain it, but like you just get another job right after this, right? And there are those people who are just, I mean, everybody who's in that category right now is blaming it on coronavirus, but in reality, the coronavirus just really accelerated the economic downturn that we're having, you know. And people talk about the, you know, patterns or whatever in economics and all that, but that's kind of irrelevant when I think about it. I think, okay, well, you know, this is a workforce reset. You know, there were a lot of people who are in that kind of mindset where it's like, you know, that working for a job, they owe it to them. You know, they had that kind of, that I see it as a negative mindset. Maybe some people are going to see it as a positive mindset where it's like the world owes it to me to have a job, or like, you know, kind of like a pretentious thing.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, those folks are going to really eat it if they don't get another job after they get back to, you know, this, well, maybe let's say 8 months or whatever it's going to take till the businesses open up again. It's going to be one of those things like you didn't make it happen again. Like, and it takes a lot of failure and to know how to pivot. You talked about pivoting earlier. You gotta fail to know to pivot.
Yeah.
You know, that's a skill that you can learn, and you know.
I'm telling you, man. Let me real quick. I'm gonna throw this in there. So one of the things really that made me really consider getting into, you know, working for myself full time is when I was teaching at this school, okay, and I loved it. Right before, when I first started teaching, I was teaching in the inner city. I was in a rough school. It was what it was, right? You know, it was just crazy. All right, but then after that, I had got another job teaching at this nice school. I mean, I loved it. You know what I'm saying? I was teaching there. It was beautiful. It was, you know, the kids were cool, the administration was cool, the school was clean. You know what I mean? Air conditioning and heat, all that type of jazz, man. You know, I was coaching at another high school, and I was coaching with a good friend of mine who I met during coaching. But everything was just sweet. You know what I mean? Like it was sweet. I had everything how I wanted it, and then like this, boom, it was over. Right? They had came through. They did budget cuts, and I was, it's like what they say, last one hired, first one fired type of deal. Right? And that's what happened. And at that point, dude, it messed with me. It really messed with me. Like I was messed up over that. You know what I'm saying? I felt like I just had everything was just going beautiful, and it was just like boom, snatched away from me like that. And so that's what really got me thinking to get into this whole stuff. It wasn't then that I made the transition. It would have had been another year because I taught again for another year. But it was at that point that I was just like, yo, I'm never letting that happen to me again. You know what I'm saying? You've been fired enough times. After a while, you get sick of it. You just like, you know what? I can't have this going on. I can't let nobody control my fate that much. You know what I'm saying? I feel like for me, that was kind of just like the last straw. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, even years before, I had been laid off from my other job where I was working in the trade over 5 years. But that right there was just like, that was it, bro. So, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's going to have their point. I don't know what people's points are, but for me, that was mine. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you just get something taken away from you, you had it how you wanted it, and then you just realize how much control you don't have over it. That's what changed it for me. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like it was just kind of made me think. What you were saying kind of made me think of all of that.
Yeah, and I think that it's just amplified with this is, you know, that experience, a lot of people are going through their first experience, you know, like that. And, you know, adversity for me, I've experienced a lot of adversity, and in the workforce, the adversity, you know, was self-implemented a lot of the time. Like I hear your story and I'm like, wow, I admire that. Like, you got big opportunities, you know, from you know, the manufacturing world that you're working in, and getting an opportunity working for the school system. But I'm sure you put a lot of effort into doing that. I know what it takes to do that, and like, I admire that for sure. And then when you talk about, you know, that happening like that, they cut budget cuts, you know, you hear about that stuff, but you don't necessarily know a lot of people, I mean, that have gone through that. So I'm sure this is like, you're thinking like, oh, this is nothing. Like, this is just another, this is like nothing. Like, I could have saw this coming. Like, this was, you know, the way that you've been working, it's like that could happen to you any day, you know, being laid off. And then I mean, laid off and what happened to you with budget cuts is two different things. Laying off is like, oh man, you know, but then like budget cuts is like, it's more like F you, like, you know, yeah. Sure, and so like, what I've been through is like, I've always been kind of someone who wanted to step back, you know, in my workplace, not to get too friendly with people, because down here it's like people will say wild stuff. I'm not sure if it's the same up in Jersey, but people just say wild stuff to protect their job, right? Yeah, I've been through that so many, you know. I'd be like, man, yeah. And so for me, I don't play that shit, and so too many times, I'll just get let go because people want to play that game, and I don't play that game. I don't play the game, you know. And then so I've already played this whole like get money from the government game, you know. It's nothing new, you know, for me. And I know that playing the get money from the government game can go one of two ways. They either give it to you or they don't give it to you, you know. Right. Yeah. And you know, while I was going through like the constant, you get, you know, the constant like, okay, you work this job for X amount of time, then, you know, for whatever reason they want to furlough you or lay you off. You got to go to the government and say, hey, can I get unemployment? Can I get some money so I can go to my next job or whatever? Done that. You know, it's nothing. You know,
not that big a deal, man.
Yeah, not at all. It's like, it's no different. And I'm trying to explain to people that, you know, people need to realize that the company they work for do it. That's why they're in the position that they can pay you, because they get budget cuts or they get tax cuts. They get all these reasons that keep their budgets in play. You know, they get government contracts. Government contracts are just a government aid. Just look at it like, and so like when I hear people say, "Oh, I'm too proud to do things," I'm like, well, you obviously just don't understand the system. Like, so like. For me, it's like, you gotta look at that. You gotta look at the, you know, you look at the public money. You gotta look at the private money that's going out right now. You talked about ideas earlier. You know, you gotta take your idea and pitch it. I think it's gonna be easy, but you gotta have communication skills. You gotta be able to get online and have a Zoom call or whatnot with somebody who has the opportunities, you know. And I wanted to, you know, talk to you about this. You talked about you got an idea of a product. I have an idea of a product as well. You know, my product that I was developing prior to all this happening, I flew out to Los Angeles for an esports convention, and then I went to Houston for another esports convention, because I've been doing this whole media coverage thing for esports for the past 5 years. And so the product that I was developing was an online education system. You know, as I was working for clients, I kind of got to piece these things together, learn business, learn how to get people to contract work for you, all of these different things. Whereas the day zero people don't have that. Just to add that in there, just trying to keep the thing put a foundation to this, is that it is the product, developing a product like you're talking about, it takes experience, it takes things. Providing a service, you could start at day zero.
Absolutely.
You just providing a service, you have to know that you want to do something and go and do it. Right. The product stuff is a lot harder. You know, that's more about the conversation that we're having, is like, how do you put together an education system to teach other people to do a service. You know, right. You know, I don't know what your idea was for a product, but you know, when I think of people like a Grant Cardone or a Ty Lopez, or even a Gary Vaynerchuk, for instance, their products, they're like a bridge between learning how to do a service and also learning how to make the product. You know,
right, yeah.
And then when we start getting into the idea of physical products, I think that's the way that the supply chain is working right now. Physical products, that might be a bit difficult. Yeah. You know, that's one where it's like, well, with this whole Made in America mandate, it's like, you know, I kind of, you know, it's kind of this, it's a blessing and a curse, because you kind of want the economy to be made in America, you know, and you want your community to have money to spend money, you know, right. But at the same point in time, the way the systems work and way that, you know, that people have been doing it, in order to operate, at least developing a physical product, you kind of have to do business with other countries, you know, right. Because we just don't have the tools. We don't have the machines to you know, print this or mold this or whatever it may be. And you know, because you worked in manufacturing, you know, X years ago, what the game's like as far as that goes. Yeah. You know, so I just wonder, you know, with those folks who are having to pivot, you know, making from doing like a textile to now doing metal, you know, and plastics. It's crazy. You know, you're talking about, like, for instance, some gaming peripheral companies, people who manufacture computer parts, are having to manufacture ventilators and masks. It's nuts. It's just like, how long will that go up? How long can we keep that up? And then how do folks like myself, that, you know, I got some ideas for stuff. I look at, there's a company out there called Stream Geeks, and the company that's above it is called IPTV cameras or something like, I can't remember, but they primarily manufacture camera equipment for production studios. You know, and I see what they're doing, I think, well, man, maybe one day I'll be like that. I'll be manufacturing cameras. I'll be thinking of broad ideas like that. And I got a couple different ideas like that, and it's, you know, I thought that was something, you know, before all this coronavirus stuff, products and whatnot, was something that could happen in the next 5 years. Now it's like, well, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't understand the landscape enough to put that together. But I definitely know that there's an avenue for people to educate, you know, for sure. To put together your ebook, put together your online course and whatnot, and sell that stuff.
Especially in esports, man. I just heard, I didn't see it. I forget where I seen it at, but I heard that they was going to air like an esports basketball game on ESPN, like regular ESPN, not like the Ocho or nothing like that. So it's like, it's crazy, man. You just never know where these opportunities are going to pop up. But, you know, you're right. Like you said, when you're creating something, you know, you kind of got to have experience and a little bit, at least you would think, in what you're already doing. You know what I'm saying? So, but you never know where that opportunity is gonna pop up at, though, man. So.
Yeah, I think I mean intuition. Intuition, I think, is something maybe that will highlight what you're saying is you could have intuition and just like naturally adapt. Like that. I mean, it kind of just like this word's gonna sound kind of hunky dory there, but manifest it. Manifest it into your reality.
Right, sure.
And I never really like want to promote that type of stuff, but there's the folks out there that it's like they're like, if you meditate on it, it'll come to law of attraction, that sort of thing.
Right.
And like you could just sit on your ass and do nothing, forever. But you gotta put some action into it. And I think there are. And I hope this podcast gets to somebody who's just been thinking about sort of stuff like that, because I am, and you brought it up earlier that you've been thinking about a product, and that I would like to hear about that, in the comments or something like that, or send me a message, tell me like if I can help someone in any way, if I can help you as well in any way developing that product.
For sure, man. Dude, it was really simple. It was going to be a magazine, right? And that's really what it was going to be. It was going to be a magazine. A local magazine. That's all it was going to be. You know what I'm saying? It was a way to make some money. It was a way to still be able to do what I was doing. It was just going to be a food-based magazine. That's really what it was going to be. And and I had took the idea to a couple of my clients because they was and they was into it. They was I had got a whole game plan on how to get this whole bad boy set up and rolling and everything. And that's really what it was, man. It was, it was a way to create another stream of making some money, and since it's a product, it's more scalable, But that's really what it was, It was something like that, and it was just like, a lot of. It was one of those things where I feel like it was kind of like it wasn't really focused on, because everything is so digital now, which is fine. That's the way of the world. You know what I'm saying? But it was kind of like I seen an opening. That's what it was. Like I seen an opening. I see these businesses and they still spending plenty of money buying print ads. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of where that experience comes in. Like you seeing it, knowing it. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I'm seeing my work in a bunch of magazines. You know what I mean? So. Somebody's spending this money somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So shit, I'm like, why can't I get in on that? You know what I mean? Make it simple, make it easy, and then build it up from there. You know what I'm saying? But just start off simple. So that's what I was going to do. It was going to be a super simple food magazine, hyper local, just in like a couple of zip codes. That's it, man. And then figuring out how to make the money from it. You know what I'm saying? So that was what the idea was. Now, like I said, kind of, things came down to a shutdown. So whatever it is, what it is. But that's what it was, man. Just super simple, man. Like something that people weren't really looking at. There were people looking at it, but like, you're running across somebody, man, who's doing that? Nobody's doing that no more. So to me, that's a perfect opportunity because there's less competition. You know what I'm saying? So, and I still see it out there working. So that's what I was gonna do. You know what I mean? But we'll see. We'll see how things go after this is all said and done. You know what I mean? We'll see who lasts the storm and who doesn't, and we'll see whatever happens. But basically that was it. So now maybe I'll make something else, maybe another product or something. I don't know. Maybe I'll sell T-shirts or something. I don't know. Whatever, man. You know what I mean? Just something. You know what I mean? But that's what it was, really. You know what I mean? I would like to be able to make something that's more digital, but I feel like I don't know what that would be for me. You know what I'm saying? Like I like what you're saying. Like you're making that kind of that educational platform. So for me, I'm not too sure on what that would be. Like, you know what I mean? Like me making it personally. You know, one of my clients, they teach and they got courses and all of that stuff. So I help them and, you know, selling that and setting up all that stuff online, because that's not what they do. But, you know, that for me, that's how I could get into it, because, you know, I don't really have something where I feel comfortable, like I got something like here, you know what I mean? But, you know.
Yeah. I mean, so the client that I was working with before this all went down, he was in the health and wellness yoga space. I think you're similar, right? You were doing similar.
Health and wellness?
Yeah. Did you have a yoga instructor? I don't remember.
No, I mean, I've done some work for some gyms. There's like a gym around the corner from me, and I've done a bunch of photo shoots for them. But I wasn't really into the health and wellness space though. Yeah,
so that's what I was doing for the past year. Was doing that, and it was, it's kind of where I kind of got some more information. The business aspect, I didn't really get that much business experience out of that. It was more about the products and trying to sell the marketing and advertising.
Right.
My business experience that I've gotten was previously working as a general manager, assistant manager for bars and restaurants, and just kind of I've been like, oh well, why am I getting a 1099 here, but I got a W-2? Why is this going on? Like, why is it always switching up on me? Like, why do certain people have a business like this and a business like that? Right. And so I was like, oh, somehow I'm getting screwed. You know, so somehow I'm the one getting screwed in this deal. Right. And it wasn't until later on when I started trying to file for unemployment that it was like, oh, this is how this is working. This is the get down for them over here. Right. And so, you know, and come to find out now, you know, dealing with that now that, you know, clients are canceling and everything and trying to figure out unemployment is such a broken system. It's so broken because if you're in your business for yourself, you gotta have all this paperwork in line, and it's crazy. Like, it's real crazy as far as how it's going and how it's being distributed. But I mean, like, I can't you know, state enough. Like, just try if you're really just there. If it's between the streets and you know,
take
the
it,
street.
Man.
Yeah, like
take it, dog. Like, you know, whatever you want to give it out, and we're gonna get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it might be a little tricky, but we're gonna figure it out.
I've been hearing people's horror stories of people getting, you know, kicked out of their apartments or their houses or whatever because they can't pay rent or whatever, and getting dragged out of places. It's I
believe it.
It's crazy. I mean,
you gotta do what you gotta do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. It's like, folks, like, if you can listen to anything, stop being so, you know, being so proud, being so ridiculous. Just take what you can get. Like, obviously, what you like, you might as well call your employer the government. Since your employer, the government, doesn't want to give you money, take money from the established government. Like, hey, like I don't know. Folks need to think of this, because you don't want to end up on the streets. You don't want to have to be, you know, you gotten yourself to the point at which you can get an apartment, you can get yourself a house or whatever. You know, for whatever reason, you're in a position where you might have to sleep in your car, but try and get the money. You know,
you might as well.
Yeah, like right now.
Everybody else out here doing it, you might as well get your little slice.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it.
Absolutely.
Whether you deserve it or you don't. If they willing to give it to you, you might as well try to take it.
Yeah. There's a couple of private grants out there. You know, Bumble, Facebook, some big private companies. Well, they're publicly traded, but I mean, they're private grants when it comes down to who gets accepted or who doesn't. I mean, it's a little bit more open to the public grants that are coming from the government as to who can get it. It's a little bit more specific on who gets it. But those as well, go out there and apply for those private grants. There might be something in your city, you know, private grant in your city, or your county, or wherever you live. So this is a global platform, so I don't know I don't know necessarily what the rules are, you know, in the UK or in Canada or Mexico or anything like that. Your government shut down. I don't know, but for those
you got to
folks,
just do the research, man. You're right. You got to do the research. I apply for other grants through other companies, nonprofits. We'll see what happens. Might get them, might not. But you got to at least try. So you're right, though. But you got to look. You got to do the research. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So before I let you go, anything you want to say? Any ideas? Also, feel free to shout out your channels and your website. Talk about what services you're able to still sell, like whatever you can do. Feel free. I'd like to hear more about what you got going on.
All right. Well, I would just say in closing. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, man. It was a good time. Enjoy getting to know you, man. You know, and you can check me out. Usually you can find me everything with Jonathan K. Moore. You know, JONATHANK Moore. That's on my YouTube. Or Create More Media. That's on all my stuff. My YouTube, my social media, my Instagram, my Facebook, my website. I'm not a huge social media guy. I ain't gonna lie. You know what I mean? I'm not like always on, but you know, I'm there, but I ain't always on. But right now, like I said, you know, a lot of the things that I'm focusing on now going forward is just looking for those opportunities, man. As far as like I said, whether it be something like a virtual tours or whatever the case may be, putting in more stock work, maybe, you know, putting together some of my own content to try to build up my platforms and everything else while I got this time. And then seeing what's going on with these programs, man, these government programs, you know, and seeing what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, you know, hey, something's going to happen. You know what I mean? I don't know what that something is right now, and I ain't going to lie and act like I got the answers. But, you know, something's going to happen. So in the meantime, just look for opportunities and take advantage of any opportunities, whether it be that PPP, you know, the EIDLs, unemployment, anything. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. Grants, all that stuff. I'm going after it to try to weather this storm just like everybody else. You know what I mean? And, you know, and then if not, we'll see when it's all said and done. You know what I mean? In the midst, something might change because, like, you know, once you start out wanting to do something, and sometimes that's not what it always ends up being. You know, like I said, I started out doing social media marketing, and apparently I guess I wasn't that good at it. I lost all them clients. And then I've been doing this lately, you know, all of my content creating for the last, you know, almost 3 years now. And then we'll see what happens, man. You know, just kind of got to play it how the landscape is. You know what I mean? And hopefully, still be able to do what you want to do to some degree with all of that. But you know, being able to adapt, not being too proud to be like, oh, I ain't doing that, or you know, just being able to adapt, do what needs to be done, and you know, keep it moving, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you on Upwork or Fiverr or any of those places?
I'm not on Upwork or Fiverr. I have used a lot of those services. You know what I mean? I have like white label those services for like clients and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know how to can you do this? Well, of course I can do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, but I haven't been on there myself. But, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to being on there. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, you know, if it's in my wheelhouse, like, why not? You know what I mean? I can't say I'm going to go out and do something that completely I have no idea about. But if it's in my wheelhouse, that's what I'll do, you know? And then also whoever, you know, any clients that I've worked with in the past or still work with, just looking for different ways to service them more, you know what I'm saying? So it's like I have some video clients, but then, you know, I can also help them with web stuff or setting up their courses online or whatever the case may be. That might not be my specialty, but, you know,
do you So, I mean, you said it. I mean, I'm going to put it in different words, but do you subcontract people locally?
Depending on the job, you know what I mean? If there's a margin in there for it, you know, or if it's something that I can't do, then you know what I mean? interestingly enough, being a teacher, I used to teach photography and all, I have some students who are really into film and everything else.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So when I've done some work or gotten some bigger projects or whatever, you know, and I needed to sub some work, that's a good pool that I can reach into because it's people I already know and trust. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, I try to keep it. You know, I just try to keep a light ship, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, nothing too crazy. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, nowadays you can do damn near anything. But, you know, but nothing too crazy. You know what I mean? Not looking to have too many hands on deck, but having the things that I need. You know what I'm saying? That's about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I guess, maybe the opposite in that regard. I like to, the bigger productions are kind of where I think I would strive, and I was kind of getting there. I was just kind of trying to build up my business legally to be able to do more like hiring and firing and keeping going, because I got to the level where I was contracting people on Upwork, subcontracting. I had a couple of different people who I directly contracted, and you know were never really got to the $600 mark to where I had to deal with any of that really, but you know, I was getting there, and I was like, I was like, damn, I'm gonna have that 10 employees, you know, I'm gonna have that, like, and it just never really got there. But you know, all the experience that I've gotten have made me want to. I desired that level of thing, and you know, I hear, like, I got a buddy. You know, I got a couple different buddies, but Knives is a really close one. Knives Monroe, and he, you know, he has that experience of back in the day producing his own short film as an artist, and putting up, you know, the budget for a production like that, and having contract 10 like a whole cast and behind the scenes in front of the screen sort of situation. And I had some of that experience in college, but from a professional level, I haven't got there for myself yet, and that's something I'm working on. But yeah,
so that's
what was that?
I said, you know, you want that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you know, you got to know what you want. You know, you want that. That's straight. You know what I mean? Ain't nothing wrong with that.
It's hard though, because you know, a lot of people along the way were like, "That's going to be really difficult," you know, and it is like, because it's you know, for folk like for what I normally do, obviously, the independent, or just getting the contract, that's simple enough. It goes into a banking account, you know, whatever the work is. But once you start getting people working with you, and well, in other words, working for you, it's not easy. Like, there's so many pieces of paper that you need to just justify that you can do that. But you know, something I'm working on, I'm aspiring to do. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on the show, and I'd love to have you back on again, maybe on a roundtable. I'm going to try and put together a roundtable so some different content creators can come on. I just, you know, this is something that I have the opportunity to do more now, because a lot of what I was doing before was focusing on clients, and as I'm pivoting and whatnot to try and either be some sort of video conference engineer or something like that, and helping people establish their podcasts, and get online for people who aren't online, trying to build up the sales channels to do that, as well as the products like I talked to you about earlier. I still want to have a creative avenue and an educational avenue like this, to utilize all the tools and whatnot that I've been putting together for clients, for folks out there, like yourself and I, to kind of talk about the business, how we're all working, like how we're doing it independently, how we're doing it as a team, what are some of the things that we sell, how can we help each other out, That's the kind of the goal here. But once again, thanks for coming on the show, and
thanks for having me, man.
For all of you guys who tuned in, and I didn't have the comments up for a while, so I don't know who said what, but because we were just vibing, getting things on the record on wax, and I'll shoot everybody over the podcast version of this on social media. Again, Trent Knox TV on pretty much all social media across the world. TrentKnox.com. Peace.